We're continuing with the section on Parshat Noach. We're on page 111, Bereshit Yud, Pasuk Tetvav, Genesis 10, verse 15. If we'll just briefly refresh your memory, what we're doing is we're going through the sons and grandsons of Noah and how they derive both from their names and from their notes where they separate out, and sometimes there is also some implications about their character or how they're setting up their societies, again based on the way that the notes define them. So I'm just going to bring us back briefly to a couple of pages, page 104. Bereshit Yud Pasuk Vav 10:6. So we're going to see that the sons of Ham are Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. We've already discussed Cush and Mitzrayim in the previous sentences, and now we're going to come back to the page that we were at, page 111, 10:15. Uchnan. So what we see is that we skipped one of the sons. We skipped Put. We didn't say anything about him, and in fact, we are not going to say anything about him.
Oh.
So there are 4 sons of Ham, and we only mentioned 3 when we talk about who had grandchildren. So the commentary number 1. So this has a revi'i. So Canaan is going to stand alone and is going to be something that has emphasis on him. Commentary number 1. Since Put in the presentation of his genealogical tree was omitted as a son of Ham, it may be that he died or was absorbed fortifying Egypt, giving rise to Lehavim, Kaftorim, and Plishtim, and Canaan may have been built up by him, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So when we were discussing the sons of Egypt, we noted that some of them sort of combined and mixed amongst themselves to make a broader type of society within themselves, and we're implying that the sons of Put or Put himself might have been absorbed into those. And also Canaan, we see a revi'i is a note that broadens. It starts at a point and then broadens out and then narrows again. But that broadening might include Put and his descendants, who didn't form a society of their own or didn't form a distinct group on their own, but rather were absorbed into possibly Patrusim Kasluchim, so some of the sons of Egypt, and possibly into Canaan because of the broadening of the revi'i, of that note that's there. Yalad had produced with a tavir, so a tavir is a note that's got a mercha with a dot in the center that's sheltered. So we always look for something that is sheltering or supporting there. Through his sons, in conjunction with the Philistines, Canaan had produced a parallel to the concept of Nimrod, as indicated by the shape of a reading mark. So Nimrod's strategy was to make both the centers of art and the centers of science and the centers of military power sort of forcibly mix with each other by geographically putting them in places where they had to be next to each other, had to trade with each other, had to build centers that would specifically follow his philosophy. So Canaan gets this stabilizing idea of making some of that same organization that Nimrod had produced previously. At Sidon, so this is a mercha, so this is going to lightly be connected to what comes from before, but mostly pushes forward into what's going to go after. With Sidon, so we might recognize a modern city that has a similar name, Sidon. So with Sidon, he built up a center for commerce, for distant international navigation, for science, the invention of glass and wealth. These were known as Sidonim, and gave a start to the Phoenicians, today's Lebanon, as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. So what's it facing out towards? It's facing the Mercha is a note that is pointing out to the east, and Sidon is on the west coast of Lebanon, pointing out towards the Mediterranean Sea. That's where the Phoenicians are, that's where they start, and that's also where Sidon is. And we get some mention of archaeological knowledge about what the Phoenicians were known for, the invention of glass. I don't think that's implied anywhere within their name or implied from the note. I think that's just archaeological information. Bechoro with a tipcha. So this is a note that is going to focus us back towards what had happened before, and it's going to have a pause after it. From his father Canaan, Sidon received the choice of land and seashores, since he was his firstborn, as stressed by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So the fact that Sidon is the Bechor is going to give him special privileges, and it's going to separate him out from the other sons. So we have a tipcha that says this is something that is special to Sidon, and he separates from everybody else, so he gets the first pick of what would be, I suppose, the best land. V'et with the sof pasuk, so this is going to be a stabilizing influence, but separated out from, again, Bechoro. In order to protect his country in general, and Sidon in particular, Canaan established strongholds. And with Chet, he secured military strength in the northeast to discourage any possible attacker. So, by he chitat Hashem, that with the word Chet implies terror or fear or something that would scare an enemy. So we again come across the concept that biblical names sometimes imply a character and don't always tell us what the person's actual name was. Sometimes they do. So we've heard of Hittites. So this is a name that managed to stick, but it has much more meaning when you change it from Hittite to Chet and Chitat. These are people who were meant to be a military stronghold that made other people afraid to attack this area.
Just excuse my lack of the language here. Is this word Chet any relation to like El Chet sin?
So Chet. There are Hebrew words that have letters that fall away when you conjugate them. So there are letters that don't necessarily have a sound, and they disappear. So when you have a letter, a word that is shortened to 2 letters instead of 3 from its root, sometimes you have to define what that third letter actually was and where in the word it can go. Because it can be the first letter that falls away, or the second letter that falls away, or the third letter that falls away. There are lots of letters in Hebrew that don't have pronunciation. Aleph and Ayin and Hey, and the letter Yud is sometimes part of the vowel sound that goes before it, so the letter Yud can fall away as well. So a lot of these letters will fall away, and then you can get different words that have that same 2-letter part in them, but mean something completely different.
Oh, okay.
So, Chet from sin is the concept of shooting something and missing the mark. You're attempting to do something and you do something incorrectly, even though you were attempting to do something that might have had purpose or correctness to it. So that's the idea of Chet. It's an unintentional sin that you were trying to do the right thing and something led you astray and you missed. Versus Shogeg, which is the Asinu B'Shkaga, which is a complete accident, or Bizadon, something that you did purposefully and willfully. So there are various gradations of how you can miss the mark. And chait is that middle one of trying and missing the mark.
Right.
But here we're trying to define the name chait coming from chitat, probably chet yud tav, which would mean fear.
But also he's taking the chet and the tet and he's included there chamat, or he's adding a mem to it, as in chamat, fury. I mean, assume your dad did it.
Pardon? Chamat is anger of.
Right.
So it's not anger. It's chitat. Chitat is the fear of. Chitat. With chet yud tav hey would be the root there, I believe. My grammar is not that great, but that's what I think it's from. So we have a note: for ages the Chittim or the Hittites were feared as violent warriors, and a remark: the oldest known state of the Chittim was Samal, which was positioned to the east of the northeastern corner of the Mediterranean, with its capital city on the hillside called Zancirli. Before the beginning of the 17th century BC, they marched to the south, having occupied the great caravan city Chalev near Aleppo. By expansion to the south, they went as far as Hebron, where they negotiated with Abraham. So we do see later on that Abraham makes a treaty with the Chittim. Around the 13th century BC, they established the capital of the southernmost kingdom, which they name in memory of Hamat. So that's where Mem came from. But that's from Ham's name. That's not from Chita, but that's rather from Ham's name. That they named the capital after their father. So
these are the Klingons.
The what?
The Klingons.
All right. So we're going to move on. We'll just read the sentence, and we'll notice that Canaan is going to be separated out. Yalad, the fact that he gave birth to these children, isn't the concept. It's the concept that he gives them a base of stability, a way to form a society that will be insulated from those around them and protected by the organization. So this Yalad is actually going to give them protection by standing again separate from the rest of the concept, and Sidon Bechoro is going to stand separate from Chet. Uchenan Yalad at Sidon Bechoro Yad Chet. And we're going to continue on 10:16 on the next page. Vet Hayevusi with a Pashta. So this is going to emphasize the word. We noted before that sometimes especially when we're talking about the way that people are spreading throughout the land, that the directional concept of the note is going to tell us the direction that they spread from the base that the rest of the family have established. So Yevusi with a note on top and pointing upwards is going to give us a direction. And with the Yevusi, number one, Canaan had established the positioning of his oldest two sons. He dealt in succession for Sidon, and with the Yevusi, whom he told to expand to the east and to the south, and to keep ties with his brother on the north, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the Yevusi are going to point north above the word to where his older two brothers are. So he's going to be to the south, and to the east directionally. So from his vantage point, he's going to look up and up and out towards where the two brothers mentioned in the previous sentence live. So we're implying geographical position from the positioning of the notes in relationship to the previous sentence. Viet ha'emori, so this has a zakef katon. This has three separate concepts that have to be dealt with here, because it's got the munach, which separates itself out, and then the katon, which is a two-part note. Subsequently, Canaan decided that the intermediate land around Chet to the north of Sidon should be occupied by his descendants, and with the Amori, his country would consist of hillsides and lowland, by which he would be able to support both of his older brothers, as shown by the different shape and placement of the two reading marks. So what we're saying here is that this is all organizationally planned in order to create a stable empire, and he is placing the Amori in a variety of places, in valleys, on hilltops, and in various geographic places, in order to be able to support the other two brothers that he's already established as being outposts and guards for his empire. So we're Parshat Noach, Breshit Yud, Pasuk Tetzayin, 10:16. Number 3, Ve'et, and along with a tipcha. So this is going to focus us backwards. Excuse me. It's going to focus us backwards and slightly separate ourselves out from what's going to come afterwards. Number 3, thank you. The other brothers shall share common interests, and along with the Amori, they shall be able to utilize his land, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we're drawing a connection, but still making a separation. So that's the purpose of having a tipcha with this word. Hagirgashi, the number 4. Similarly, the Girgashi shall support all his brothers with manpower, and shall also be permitted to live among each of them. So they're going to stand out separately, and yet conceptually be tied to the rest, be a stable force that allows sort of reinforcements for all of the other brothers. So that's why they get the stability of a sof pasuk. So we're going to notice when we read the pasuk the multiple roles that the Amori play, and the word ve'et, and, gets this prolonged pronunciation and differentiation from the other word with a space or a separation after it, to tell us that this is both a separation and a binding. They're all different, but they're all helping each other as part of a master plan. V'et ha'yevusi, v'et ha'emori, v'et ha'girgashi. 10:17. So I understand that this is probably going to be one of the most difficult sections that we're actually going through these past couple of weeks, because we're really just going over names, and yet we see that the notes do give us perhaps more depth than just reading a list of names. V'et ha'chivi, and with the chivi, this is a mercha, so this is going to slightly be connected to what's come from before, but mostly focuses forward onto what's going to come afterwards. The land to the south of Sidon was settled among the next son, and with the chivi, Canaan established a barrier to buffer access to Sidon by southern enemies, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So now we've got notes that are fitting underneath the word. So we're implying again direction underneath would be south. So we're having a border set up to the south by the chivi, connected to Viet Ha'araki. This is a tipcha. This is going to connect us to what had happened before, and have a slight pause after it. And with the Araki, number 2, the mountainous area north of Sidon was occupied by his sons, and with the Araki for the purpose of shielding the city from that direction, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So we're going to have the concept of somebody protecting from the south, and somebody else making the city secure by protecting from the north. So even though it's a note that's on the bottom of the word, we're closing the concept by the idea of connecting those two words, which is what the notes do. And we have the idea that one is protecting from the south and the other is protecting from the north.
Jeff, can I ask you, do you know in cartography when the concept came of putting north above and south below?
Do I know that answer? No, I will. That
Because I think
is something I
that's-
will have to.
It's a good question.
I think that came only several hundred years ago with the European explorers.
Because they navigated by the North Star.
If it was by the North Star, then it could have been in Egyptian times.
It's probably
So-
the Portuguese. I'll double check. Pretty sure.
I'm not sure the concept of it being on a map, but it is certainly something that Jewish philosophy tends to imply. I know we haven't done Parshat Breshit, but and this will be a little bit of a diversion, but that's fine. We'll go through this now, just because it will give us some insight. So I don't know if I've ever talked about the first letter in Torah, Breshit, the Beit. The Beit looks like this. We have a pasuk in Navi that says, "Mitzafon yavo atzara." From the north, the danger is going to come. So we know that the part that's open, the part that does not have definition, is the part where we might see something dangerous coming from. So when people are going to influence what's going to happen, when the world is open to all of its creations and them being allowed to do things, that's when something dangerous might happen. So the opposite of the north is the south. That's this wall here. And when you look at it that way, the east is going to be up, the west is going to be down, and we do have in Judaism the concept of Mizrach being perhaps something that is something that we look forward to or look to more. So we're elevating the east and lowering the west, knowing that the north is the area where the danger might come from. And we've got creation, but we know that something happened. God was there before creation. So even though this is where the world starts, we know there's something that happens beforehand. So we have the letter Beit that defines north, south, east, and west, defines a hierarchy amongst them, and all implied by the shape of the letter Beit. So I don't know that we know that north is to the top in Jewish philosophy, other than the concept of, we know that Tzafon is that direction from Eretz Yisrael, but I don't know that I'm not overlaying my knowledge of what cartography defines for us, that north is up.
But it whether it's up or not, north is north. In other words, it is a static reality. This is north, whether we decide to be up
If
or
the
not.
name was given to that position.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm just.
No, I understand. So we've got a note that's on top, and we're implying that that's north from the concept of what we think north is up. I'm trying to think of anything else that I have that's a reference that tells me that north is up. That's from a Torah source, and it doesn't immediately come to mind. Alyssa, you had a question?
I just wanted to comment on something else. Like you skipped over put, and I'm thinking that maybe you're talking about everyone being like protecting areas. So maybe put was from Putiel, Yitro, and because it says here that he was from Canaan, the Canaan, a Canaanite. So you have the Canaan.
It comes many centuries later.
Much.
But this is the sons of Noah.
This is the sons of Noah.
Right. I know. You have Put. Like I'm
Mhm.
thinking maybe Putiel had come from that originally. Putiel.
So we have the
Like,
the sons of Ham, and
Yeah, they-
three of them are
Contact
mentioned
them.
with progeny, and one is not mentioned at all. So conceptually, we're deciding with the Mechaber of the text has decided that the descendants of Put didn't form a separate group; rather, they were somehow incorporated
Maybe they
to
were like-
support
maybe it's like Kohanim or
into some of the
Yeah,
various
okay.
other brothers.
Or
So-
maybe Put never had kids.
Because like,
Or-
yeah, or
or
I'm thinking
and
maybe
he said, and he implies,
Putiel
or
maybe
he
is
died,
in there.
Yeah.
or he died before he had children. So his children don't get mentioned, or he simply didn't have children. So again,
Although at the time that Israel was in Egypt, Put was actually like
so if we
almost
look
a
back
province.
to sentence 10:6, so that's going to define the sons of Ham, Ubnei Ham, Cush, Umitzrayim, Ufut, Uchnan. Okay, but then we go over the sons of Cush, we go over the sons of Mitzrayim, we go over the sons of Canaan, and we don't mention anything about the sons of Put. So we have to at least infer that something is going on there.
Maybe know that.
Well, that's what I'm
But
thinking.
however, there was a
Mhm.
province. There was actually a province that paid tribute to Egypt that was under the domination of Egypt at the time that Israel was in Egypt, and it was called Put.
Actually, P-U-N-T.
Yes.
And that was Ethiopia.
The area of
Mhm.
Ethiopia.
You got the wrong sea.
Yeah. The area of
the
Ethiopia.
freeze, the huge.
So it's just Put and
punch
Canaan that
to-
Put came from Canaan. I mean, according to I was looking it up now.
Well, no, Put is one of the sons of Ham.
Right. But oh, never mind.
All right, I think we're going to continue. We are sentence 10:17, the last name V'etasimi, and with the Simyi.
Wait, there's one more thing. Why are they saying Canaan last when you know that Canaan was the firstborn? Ham had Canaan. Now why didn't they put Canaan as the first in line? And you come out the ark and it says in Canaan. Pretty predictable. And then they don't say the Bachor.
That's not something that we've defined here. So we are following the order that was given in that first
Right.
sentence in 10:6. That tells us these are the sons, and I'm not sure if it's in terms of geographical location or something conceptual, or so it's not correct for birth order. So quite obviously it has another concept that it's expressing, but it's not defined by the note, so it doesn't make it into this page. Other than perhaps geographical location. 10:17, number 3, V'etasimi. The protection of Sidon from the east was also secured by the sons of Canaan, and with the Simi, who had settled there and infiltrated further southwards to the limits of the Sinai Peninsula. So, other than a knowledge of the fact that where geographically Sinai is, they again provide another area of stabilization. So we're defining this as sort of organizationally planned have each clan go into an area that will provide support for the others. So again, another stable border to the south, and that's where the Sini get the stabilizing at Naphta. So Sof Pasuk, I'm sorry. So the Sof Pasuk again gives us an element of stability. We're going to have the Chivi and the Araki with the Tipcha after the Araki, separating it out from the Sini. So we're protecting Sidon from the north and the south, and we're protecting the entire empire from farther south. So that's why the first two sons get grouped together, and then there's a pause, and the last one gets grouped separately.